Shuffle. It is September 21st, 2022. I'm, of course, flying Ryan Gokers along with.
Tampa Motormouth, Joel Varell. Yes, that's right. Your Dolphins did do that thing on
Yeah, that's.
Sunday.
We'll get to all the games from last week, but there were a few just crazy comebacks last week, a few crazy occurrences, and
And yeah, then of
oh
course
boy.
the headline though still has to definitely be, of course, Evans and Lattimore getting into it, which seems to be a yearly occurrence these days. And but the most curious thing I think that got out of the entire kerfuffle was, of course, both of them were disqualified from the game, but it's kind of interesting that you had Mike Evans, who of course appealed and was rejected today.
Yeah.
So yeah, so he is definitely still suspended and not playing for the game of Packers. But the most interesting thing was Lattimore not being suspended.
Yeah, I mean, Evans has been suspended before for physically assaulting Marcus Lattimore, so not a surprise he got suspended. I
It's
think the thing is, Lattimore just runs his mouth, and it's kind of hard to suspend someone for
it's there,
running their mouth and then getting whacked.
you had the incident where I think it was Jameis tapped Lattimore on the back of the head or something like to that effect, and then Evans came out, of course, and was trying to defend Jameis Winston, and they got into it, and that led, of course, to Evans being suspended back then. So it's sort of like history repeats itself yet again. And one of the most interesting things, though, about the whole incident because you actually had retired coach Bruce Arians who was on the sideline, and you also had Jason Light who was on the sideline because apparently what happened was that the New Orleans Saints did not have a booth for them. So
Gotcha.
sort of because usually one tends not to think, okay, Arians and Light, how come they're not up in the skybox
Yeah.
somewhere, given their their position, with NFL royalty and all
Yeah.
that.
Yeah, interesting scenario there with New Orleans and Tampa. We'll get more into that game here in a little bit. But yeah, the offense really opened up once Lattimore and Evans left the game. All right, let's go over some of the news and notes from around
Yeah, because you have
footballs.
the Buccaneers, of course, signing Cole Beasley because they don't have any wide receiver this week. Yay!
Yeah, no Evans for sure this week. I believe no Julio and
Yeah, no, no,
no
no, no, no.
Godwin today.
Shocking development that Julio Jones is injured. That never happens ever.
Yeah, no Julio, no Godwin at practice today. Dawson Knox popped up on the injury report today for the Browns. Of course, they had the Monday nighter and play the Dolphins on Sunday. DeAndre Swift with a day off, no risk there. Let's see. Hollywood Brown with a rest day, no issue there.
It was nice, of course, seeing the Commanders' Brian Robinson on the field for the first time
Yep.
since the shooting. It's always, nice seeing uplifting news.
Oh yeah. Michael Pittman back at practice today. He did miss week number 2. Let's see. Of course, the big news of the weekend was quarterback Trey Lance with the floppy
Ooh,
ankle situation. He will be out for the rest of the season.
probably one of the absolute best transactions of the entire year was the San Francisco front office inking a deal and getting Jimmy Garoppolo signed as the backup, as he is now, the starting cornerback for San
Yeah,
Francisco.
that worked out perfectly for the San Francisco 49ers. In fact, I have a lot more confidence in them now. George Kittle will practice today on a limited basis coming back from that groin injury, so optimism he'll be ready to go on Sunday.
Oh,
Let's
all
see
right.
what
You,
else.
you, you do have two particular quarterback, I think, injury conditions I think we would definitely have to monitor. Number one has to be over there in the Charger land with the concern for Justin Herbert and how warranted is that concern?
I mean, it's something he can play through. It's against Jacksonville this week. Maybe they think they can get by with the backup. This is the same injury that Tyrod Taylor had last year, where they tried to do an injection and punctured his lung.
Hmm.
So there is some risk to that, but it's essentially a pain tolerance thing. It's a fracture to cartilage. It's not going to be something with a high risk of making worse, but it's tough. I mean,
And
he's your franchise guy. You want him to be healthy, but at the same time, you don't want to give away wins, especially when you're already 1-1. Jacksonville's proven to at least be competitive so far.
And of course, the other quarterback concern that's popped up definitely was the one we saw, of course, go against Tampa Bay. And Jameis Winston look Jameis Winston-esque, especially with that interception throw for touchdown, going, hey, okay, this feels like last year again. And yeah, but of course, Jameis Winston had his injuries and his fractures that he ended up playing through. So what concern going forward for the Saints and Winston?
See, that one I'm more surprised he played through because fractured spine can get worse. They said no risk of re-injury. I don't know how true that is. I would be concerned because that sounds like a more problematic long-term thing than some cartilage. I know cartilage can heal fairly quickly and fairly well, especially in like the rib cage area. You can also wear something to protect it, like a flak jacket. The back, if you go down awkwardly on that spot of the back, that's just a lot. So,
Are
I
there
think there's concerns for the Saints.
other than those two specific concerns that I think tended just to sort of leap up out of the headlines at you immediately, are there any other quarterbacks out there who are on your concern radar and you're kind of going like Rutro land?
When you're talking about injury-wise, no.
Definitely. Okay, not
When
injury.
you're talking about quality of play-wise, I think you start that list with Russell Wilson of the Denver Broncos, who's been hot trash through the first 2 weeks. I
What
think at
Russ
this point
Cook
you got
has
to bench
not
him.
been boiling over much.
Yeah, Joe Burrow hasn't been what he was last year at the quarterback
Kirk,
position, so that's
Kirk
concerning.
Cousins and his primetime kryptonite.
Yeah, Kirk Cousins looked bad again on a night game, but we'll see. Give him another week or two. He is inconsistent. He will have these bad
I
weeks.
do have to thank Monday Night Football because that ended up breaking exactly the way I needed for fantasy because I was going up against Singletary in one league and then Dalvin Cook in another league. And I was going, ooh, because normally on any given normal regular day when you're going up against those two, it's like, okay, here comes the fantasy pain. But of course, as we know what happened, the Vikings absolutely cracked the bed big time on Monday night. Just oof, that was a yeah. Dalvin Cook. You look at those numbers, and you drafted him early. You're probably questioning your life choices, and then of course, yeah, Devin Singletary wasn't the much as case of his fault as it was the case of hey, it was let's give the ball to Stephon Diggs. As I definitely feel sorry for anybody who had to go against Stephon Diggs in any league. As you just that was a player you're going, okay, who am I playing? Oh, crap. Stephon Diggs just absolutely obliterated the bleep out of it.
I have a lot of Stephon Diggs this year and a lot of Allen Diggs stacks. So I enjoyed it, other than the one league I was playing against him and Tyreek Hill. That one didn't go so well. But overall, 7-5 week in fantasy. Did have a bye week. Joel, pretty good week as well, I believe.
All three dubs. Yes,
All
sir.
three
All three
dubs.
dubs. Not so when you're talking fantasy and reality, not too bad a week as far as picking goes. Dubs in all three leagues, I'll take it.
Yeah, Joel 11-5 in picks this week. I was 9-7, which is a 4 card better than last week. So Joel now has a 5-game lead on me, which I keep doing every year, spotting him a few games and having to fight back, which doesn't usually go well. So before we go too far off the rails, let's go into the games from last week. Chargers, Chiefs, the Thursday
When
nighter.
did we ever stay on the rails?
I know. Chargers, Chiefs last night, 27-20 on Thursday night, 27-24 Chiefs win. We've already gone over that. Chiefs with a comeback defensive touchdown really sealed this one away. The injury to Justin Herbert, he was able to stay in the game and still played pretty well. Looked definitely limited at times, but also fired some absolute darts. So we'll see what goes on with him long term. And then we go to Sunday. And we're going to lead off with, I think, the headline game of the day. Dolphins 42, Ravens 38. I got to get some stats. Hopefully NFL.com wants to cooperate today because it didn't want to last week. But the Dolphins were down 28-7 at halftime. They were down 35-14 entering the fourth quarter before a 28-3 fourth quarter brings them all the way back. for the stats, and still no NFL.com stats. So
Yeah,
NFL.com,
as if you
you
have
are a failure.
a record-setting comeback, 469 yards, 6 touchdowns, and a game that by absolutely polarizing quarterback and possibly the best game ever by a wide receiver duo. As you kind of have to wonder, is Mike McDaniel already up for Coach of the Year when you have a dub like that?
I mean, he's going to be in the conversation early. Tyreek Hill, Jalen Waddle, both 11 catches, both 2 touchdowns. Tyreek with 190 yards, Waddle with 171. Two of the aforementioned 469 yards passing with those 6 touchdowns. Did have 2 picks in the first half. Part of why this game got a little out of hand early. On the ground, not a whole lot of talk for the Dolphins. On the Ravens side, Lamar Jackson, 318 yards, 3 touchdowns through the air, plus 119 yards and a touchdown on the ground. He was also very, very good for fantasy this week. Rashad Bateman and Mark Andrews both crossing over 100 yards receiving and a touchdown. Just a high-scoring, explosive game that I don't think anybody really saw being an 80-point total. But yeah, very, very solid week. The Dolphins coming all the way back, which is one of the strangest things that I gave up on it. At halftime, I had hockey. I'm like, screw it. I know this one's done. Go on the ice. We're down 35-14. Come off the ice. Someone goes, the Dolphins won that game. I go, there's no effing way. There's no way.
It was heartbreaking for Baltimore, but Lamar Jackson has still got to be in that MVP discussion.
Yeah. Him and Tua, I think Tua is right now leading the league in passing. Who had that for the first 2 weeks of the season? Nobody. That is who. All right. Now to the another. This might actually be the best comeback of the week. The next one. Jets 31, Browns 30. Yeah, what can top a 28-3 fourth quarter? That is a 14-0 final 2 minutes, and that is what the Jets did.
Who would have thought a Jacoby Brissett, Joe Flacco matchup would have been one of the best ones of the day?
Yeah. Oh, it was absurd. So, how this one shook down, pretty much how you'd expect. The Browns just kind of held a small lead throughout most of the game, and then all hell breaks loose. Jets just go absolutely crazy. A punt, a touchdown from the Browns to score with just over 2 minutes left. They score with 2 minutes and 2 seconds. They missed the extra point. That did come in huge. Jets 4-play drive for a touchdown, recover the onside kick, 12-play drive in 1 minute for a follow-up touchdown. They come back in 1 minute and 33 seconds, and then Brissett with the interception. Both the extra points for the Jets are good. So they win 31-30. Garrett Wilson looks to be fantasy viable
for the Jets and fantasy yesterday.
Yeah, he definitely looks to be fantasy viable. Every bit the player you want from that team.
When you have 2 touchdowns next to your name after Sunday, you're definitely going to be put on the waiver wire.
Yeah, he should not be on waiver wires. If he is, unless you're absolutely loaded, you probably want to go pick him up. All right, next up, Lions 36-27 win over the Commanders. The Durs, they lose. Carson Wentz has played really well through 2 games, but DeAndre Swift looks great. Amon-Ra St. Brown looks like one of these steals of the fantasy football draft season. Curtis Samuel picking up off of waivers and just being absolutely absurd in a loss here. But the Lions fought very valiantly against the Eagles in week number 1. We'll get to the Eagles later. They are now 2-0. Spoiler alert. And looked very good over a team that dominated in week 1. So I'm curious how you feel the Lions really are, because I think we said 2 weeks ago I expect them to be better than a lot of people have them. I don't have them in my top 10 for the picks next year. So I expect them to be at least somewhat better than we have been used to. So how are you feeling about the Lions through 2 weeks?
I'm feeling pretty good just because they end up handling a team like the Washington Commanders that they should have handled and did quite handily, as even when you've got DeAndre Swift and Jamal Williams, who are slowly becoming the best running backs duo in the league. Yeah, you just don't have a lot of confidence when you're looking on the other side of the ball, and it's Terry McLaurin, Antonio Gibson, and you're just trying to look what's going on with Carson Wentz. So, yeah, I think it's a. I'm not sure if you would call it a statement victory for the Lions, but it's definitely a step in the right direction.
It's an early season win. Obviously, the Lions are 1-1 with the rest of the NFC North. So, on level footing through 2 weeks is something we can't always say about the Lions. The Commanders have looked solid as well, even though they've played the Jaguars and the Lions. So we'll get more information on the Commanders here soon. But the Lions, I think, look. I wouldn't say scary, but they do look dangerous, and that's something we haven't been able to say in a long time. Speaking of teams that look somewhat dangerous and scary, the Jacksonville Jaguars. Don't look now. They are in first place in their division at 1-1 over after a 24-0 win over the Indianapolis Colts. Jonathan Taylor couldn't really get anything going on the ground. Pretty pedestrian week there, but the Jaguars just. James Robinson looks very good. Christian Kirk looks like he was worth the money so far, which is absurd because he broke the wide receiver market. The Colts without Michael Pittman. Matt Ryan looks real bad. Without Michael Pittman to open the field, it looks like Jonathan Taylor's just a guy out there almost. But 0-1 start for the Colts. I don't think anybody had this one. Jaguars in first in the actually all three Florida teams first place in the division as of this moment.
Yeah, when you just have Matt Ryan getting sacked twice and three different defensive players record interception, it's just you just it's just one of those days that the Colts have to definitely fight over, get it, and drive on to the next game, hoping it's going to be better. As the Jaguars are actually just one of the other three teams that they're kind of working through their own issues. But as crazy as it seems, the divisional title is not out of reach.
No. I mean, this looks like a division that's wide open. Houston, half game back with the Colts, and the Titans we'll get to here in a little bit. But the Jaguars have looked solid. Again, Commanders and Colts right now, two teams that haven't looked spectacular, but
it never makes any sense. You're going Colts, you're going Jaguars. There's no way the Jaguars should win, and yet seemingly every year, I think since
like 8 or 9 years in a row,
it's insane. It's just like all of a sudden, like the Colts go to Jacksonville, and it's their kryptonite.
Yeah. All right. Speaking of kryptonite, the Saints have been that for the Bucs in the last couple of years, but not on Sunday. Buccaneers 20-10 win. This game was 3-3 for a long time. Then the aforementioned Evans, Lattimore kerfuffle broke out, and the offense followed. Nobody looked great on offense this week. I mean, Michael Thomas back in the end zone. That's encouraging because he's got 3 touchdowns in 2 weeks. Chris Olave, a lot of work. And then for the Bucs, it was really just a bunch of guys out there. I mean, you didn't have anybody who really stood out as the guy. Of course, no Godwin.
Spoiler more of that this week.
Yeah, no Julio, no Godwin. Evans out for the late part of that game. So Rashad Perriman, I think, was one of the better players. It was just an ugly, ugly week for both of these teams. Jameis Winston looked bad with those broken bones in his back. We'll see about Alvin Kamara next week. He also had a rib cartilage injury that he was working through. But a 20-10 win gives Bucs first place in the NFC South early on, ahead of the Saints. And they look very good on defense. I would say the offense still leaves a lot to be desired.
Yeah, as Tom Brady finally did it fly in after losing his first 4 regular season games to the Saints as a Buck. He finally defeated them, and this win should definitely be attributed to the defense. Although, the offense was. You're just trying to find out what happened to the offense, because when this game started out, I was just kind of like, yeah, okay, this doesn't exactly fill you as a fan with a lot of confidence, as Tampa's offense really struggled all the way into the fourth quarter, but their offensive issues are not overly concerning. Of course, as we know, wide receiver Godwin, Jones were both inactive, and so was even a left tackle Smith. But not to mention, Tom Brady missed a substantial practice this season. I think he had Wednesdays off just to sort of give him a rest day. And the Bucs have all the pieces to go to the Super Bowl together. But, if they have too many more starts like this. They ended up finishing the game okay. They ended up doing it even after the kerfuffle, just sort of getting everything right. But it was just a very ugly start that didn't fill you with a lot of confidence. That if you look at the Bucks that first quarter, you're kind of going,
Yeah.
okay, how do we win this? And then just somehow they managed to put all the pieces together. And thank you, Jameis, for being Jameis and throwing the interception touchdown. That definitely helped to seal the deal. But oof, I don't know. You're not filling me with a lot of confidence going into the Packers having Evans suspended, and yeah, I mean, I know that there's a lot of hype trying to talk up Cole Beasley and Brady's chemistry and all this, blah blah blah. And Cole Beasley really has a chance of being dangerous, but I don't know. I'm finding it very hard to pick against the Packers with the Bucks.
Yeah, we'll get to those picks here in a little bit. I think you can offensively kind of throw this one out for the Bucks, just because they were so shorthanded. But the Bucks defense, 13 points allowed in 2 games against what is probably at least two decent, if not upper end
Aaron
offenses.
Rodgers is not going to morph into Jameis and do all those interceptions.
No. No, but they held the Dak Prescott led Cowboys to 3 points as well. They've allowed 13 points in 8 quarters, and just a reminder, the Baltimore Ravens did 28 points allowed in just the fourth quarter on Sunday. So to put it in perspective, the Bucks defense is right now the best or second best unit behind maybe Buffalo, which we'll get to here a little bit later as well. But Bucks do get to 2-0. Hopefully get some weapons back, and we'll really see what this offense is. Speaking of 2-0 teams, the New York Giants. 2-0, 19-16 win over the Panthers. Not the best week for Saquon Barkley. Sterling Shepard looks like someone you got to consider adding off of waivers. Christian McCaffrey's been okay, but not what you're really hoping out of that early first round pick slot. And the Baker Mayfield led Browns are 0-2. Yeah, not a whole lot to say on this one. But the Giants 2-0. First place in the NFC East with the Eagles.
It's with the Giants. Dable's really changing around the culture, and with the Panthers, the question has got to be asked: Will Matt Rule be one of the early coaches on his way out of the NFL this year?
Yeah, he hasn't been good. He is very bad. So he's going to go pretty soon. Next up, Patriots 17-14 win over the Steelers. Nothing really in this game was worth noting. Najee Harris disappointing. Deontay Johnson also disappointing. There's so many Devontae. Yeah. Pretty much disappointing all around. Nelson Aguilar, a very nice touchdown catch over a defender, but other than that, just kind of a low-scoring, bad game. We kind of expected that with these two teams. Patriots do get to 1-1. That still puts them in a tie with the Jets for third/last in that division behind Buffalo and Miami. And the Steelers fall to 1-1 like the rest of the division or worse.
Yeah, this is one of those games where all of a sudden you were just getting ready to hand Pittsburgh the guaranteed win, and all of a sudden the Patriots are all of a sudden good. You're just like, okay, what happened to Trubisky, and what happened to Najee Harris? What happened to all of a sudden the team that just absolutely lit the world on fire in week 1 to week 2? Just all of a sudden just went wham wham. So yeah, I don't know if all of a sudden that means you're going to start backing the Patriots for winning the division, but yeah, I just think this is a sort of a speed bump and a hiccup for Pittsburgh, and I think that they can right the ship next week.
Yeah, Pittsburgh plays tomorrow night against Cleveland. Both teams 1-1. Winner will be at first place in that division at least until Sunday, and the rest of the week goes off. I don't think you look at New England either of those first 2 games and go, that's a team that's winning this division. They did lose to Miami. Miami didn't look as good in week 1 as they did week 2. And Pittsburgh is they're tough to watch, and that offensive line is terrible. I don't think it matters if it's Pickett or Trubisky or anybody else back there, quarterback. They don't have time to throw. It's not going to be an explosive offense until they get that line fixed. All right, next up, the Rams bounce back 31-27 win over the Falcons. The Falcons tried to come back in this one before a last drive interception in the end zone ended things for the Falcons. It looks like Drake London is the real deal for the Falcons, but Kyle Pitts has absolutely disappeared. Cordero Patterson with a bad week. It was just ugly, ugly, ugly for fantasy. Cooper Kupp still very, very good. Allen Robinson got some touchdowns, so not the worst week for fantasy for some of the Rams asset. Matthew Stafford, who will be brought up later in the final thoughts segment today, because that's a fun story. Look like a much better quarterback this week. Still not necessarily 100%, but the Rams 1-1. They right the ship. That whole division has at least lost one game at this point. I think the Rams still feel pretty good about their chances.
This was one of those games. If you had Mariota, if you had Stafford, if you had pretty much anybody on both of the teams, the defense most of the time, you probably had a pretty good fantasy output. Yeah, the Bills' loss was tough for the Rams to swallow, but Los Angeles actually looked pretty good against the Falcons. Atlanta just sort of clawed back and you're definitely having Kyle Pitts concerned and worry about his surprising lack of production. As Arthur Smith this week replied, "quote It's not fantasy football. We're trying to win." Guess what? Here's news. The world revolves around fantasy football now, even if it's not about fantasy football. So, hate to break it to the owner, but. Yeah, it may not be fantasy football, but you have a whole lot of people out there who drafted Pitts and are going, "What's going on?"
Yeah. Yeah, it's been real rough for Pitts owners, and he's had his opportunities. But yeah, it's been real rough. Hopefully, he gets it going because really the entire entire uh, Falcons offense has been wildly, wildly inconsistent. As my final thought is exploding at the seams right now.
You do have to give a hat tip for Atlanta for actually battling it out.
Yeah, another loss in a one-score game, though. All right, next up, 49ers Seahawks 27-7 win by the 49ers. Trey Lance injured early.
At least they weren't up by 3 touchdowns and lost it again.
Very true. Trey Lance injured early. Jimmy Garoppolo comes in, rights that ship. I believe this makes a lot of the passing, receiving options a little more viable for the Niners because we saw not much from Trey Lance week 1 because of the rain, and then week 2 just didn't get a chance. So I think this improves the Debo stock. This improves the Kittle stock when he comes back. We'll see. That backfield is going to be a complete mess with Elijah Mitchell out. It looks like Jeff Wilson and Mason are going to be the 2, but Tyrion Davis-Price now going to be out for a while. They signed Marlon Mack, brought him to that. It's a whole thing. Seahawks reverted back to kind of I think what we expected. I think there was some hope for the Seahawks that maybe Geno's better than with no, it's back to normal. So yeah.
Yeah, if you have DK Metcalf, if you have Tyler Lockett, you're questioning your life choices right now. And yeah, but I think that Pete Carroll's little bit about the fact that the Seattle Seahawks can match the 1972 Miami Dolphins, that just might come back to bite him especially with how much garbage football the Seahawks are putting out there this year.
Yeah, it's been pretty bad for the Seahawks in week number 2, but
Yeah, so
1-1, still tied in first out division.
Yeah, because you have quotables. If you think Seattle Seahawks are becoming the team of quotables, a coach thinking that they're going to duplicate the same thing that the 1972 Miami Dolphins did, and of course Geno Smith with they wrote me off and I didn't write them back. Guess what? Here's a fun fact: he actually had that trademark now.
I think the funniest thing was that Pete Carroll said they had to open up the offense and pass it down the field more. A clear shot at Russell Wilson. I think they're just here to troll Russell Wilson and the Broncos because that is quite funny. All right, next up, this one was one of the more surprising results of the week, but maybe, just maybe, the Bengals might just be the Bengals of old as they lose to the Cowboys led by Cooper Rush, 20-17. Oh boy. The Bengals look bad. The Bengals offensive line looks like it's an absolute shambles. The Cowboys, Tony Pollard had a very good game. But yeah, it was just one of these head scratching results where the Bengals, they are 0-2. And let me see if I can pull up their schedule real quick without losing my page here, because it doesn't get easier going forward. The Bengals' schedule going forward, they play the Jets this week. Shouldn't be a problem. But then again, neither should the Cowboys last week. Week number 4, in a short week, they play at home against the Dolphins. Coming off the game against the Bills, if the Dolphins win that game, they're going to be riding pretty high. Then they get the Ravens, Saints after that.
As the hilarious thing about the Bengals, the most hilarious thing is all that money that they spent on their offensive line, and Joe Burrow has been sacked a league-leading 13 times. I think someone has him projected him on pace to be sacked 111 times, and last year he was sacked 51 times. So it's really nice to see all of that money that the Bengals spent is going to good use. Oh yeah, update, no winning.
So the Bengals, a lot to figure out going forward. Cowboys 1-1. They play the Giants on Monday Night Football. Giants 2-0, Eagles 2-0. I mean, they could still be in this division. I think we all kind of wrote them off as soon as Dak Prescott was out, but maybe they can survive this.
I'm sure you've seen the memes to the Bengals. You lost to Cooper Rush.
Yeah, you can't lose to Cooper Rush. And now again, 0-2 Super Bowl hangover looks to be real, but maybe this is just what the Bengals are. They got hot at the right time last year, and they're really just an average team.
Super Bowl hangover is a scientific proven fact.
Yeah, I know a lot of Super Bowl losers do not make it back to the playoffs the following season. The Bengals look like they're following that track. Anywho, to the Texans-Broncos game. Broncos do win this one 16-9, but I don't think anybody in Denver is looking at this going, this was a good performance by our Broncos. They struggled. The Texans had the lead, and I remember watching this game going, Texans are going to win this thing. The Texans are just going to win. Russell Wilson looks horrible. They lost Jerry Jeudy to who knows how long of an injury. The Texans, this is 2 weeks in a row. They've in theory punched up against better competition and stayed in games. They tied the Colts in week number 1. Maybe that's not a great team in the Colts because, well, we saw it happen in week number 2. And then the Broncos. Maybe the Broncos aren't that good of a team, but the Texans have, at least on paper, from what we expect in the preseason, done better than we would have expected. So all that being said, the Texans are 0-1-1. They're a half game behind Jacksonville for first place in that division. The Broncos do get a win. They at least keep shouting distance with the Chiefs on top. The Chargers 1-1. Raiders 0-2. They're still in it. It's still very, very early, but you start 0-2 with the Chiefs in that division at 2-0. It's very tough. Maybe the Broncos just need more time.
This with the Broncos, the whole game could be symbolized by them having to burn a second half timeout because they forgot to put in a punt returner to receiving and also receiving 2 delay of game penalties. As they only had 2 all of last year. So I mean, when you forget to put in a punt returner and you have to burn a timeout in the second half, those are just slightly critical in the second half.
Yeah.
Wah, wah.
It's bad. It's bad for the Broncos. All right. No breaking news. I thought I just saw breaking news. No. All right. Cardinals 29-23 win in overtime over the Raiders. The Raiders were up 20-0 in this game. This was the third big comeback of the weekend. Kyler Murray, he's doing it good late. And for fantasy reasons, the Raiders, Devontae Adams had a little bit of a disappointing week. Darren Waller with a touchdown, though. That's something to be encouraged by. But the Cardinals looked really, really bad until the end of that game. James Conner out with an injury. Looks like he's day-to-day, might play this coming week. Cardinals trying to survive the DeAndre Hopkins suspension. That's 2 games down. If they can go 3-3, get DeAndre Hopkins back, maybe this team makes a run. I was feeling really, really bad about my Cardinals-Colts pick for the Super Bowl after week 1. I don't feel better about it week 2, but at least neither team is 0-2 technically. But yeah, this was a surprising dogfight win on a defensive touchdown in overtime on a Hunter Renfrow fumble.
Yeah, as this was both a good game for fantasy and reality, not a good game for Las Vegas as the Josh McDaniels era is not off to a good start after losing game 1 to the division rival Los Angeles Chargers. The Raiders blew a 20-point lead and an overturned possession time to the Cardinals. So Yeah, things are not looking too good in Raiderland for 2022, kids.
Yeah, no. Raiders 0-2. I mean, they can get it going. They've been in both games. Maybe the Cardinals and Chargers are just really, really good teams, and we'll see if they get a little bit of a weaker schedule what happens. But yeah, not looking good for the Raiders so far. All right, next up, the Sunday Nighter. This was the best of the last 3 games, by the way. Packers
What
27.
does that tell you about the quality of the
Yeah,
Monday
Monday night
games?
was,
Good
dumpster
God.
Packers 27, Bears 10. Bears only 11 passing attempts. They've got 28 total passing attempts through 2 weeks.
But Monday night was a clear example of if you did not have fantasy football, nobody would have given a crap about either of those 2 games with how bad they were.
Yes, we'll get to my Monday night miracles here when we get to those games. But Aaron Jones looked very good. AJ Dillon slightly out touching Aaron Jones, even though Jones got some touchdowns, so that helps a lot. Still looking a little rough in the passing game for the Packers, but they didn't need it this week. So we'll see next week against the
Bears
the
are
Bucks.
who we thought they
The
were.
Bears. David Montgomery looks good. David Montgomery looks like the entirety of the offense. And if you have David Montgomery, you'll probably be all right. If you have anybody else in this Bears offense, drop them. You can just drop them. But all of that being said, the Packers and Bears find themselves in a 4-way tie on top of the division. So maybe you feel encouraged in Chicago. I mean, you always lose to the Packers. Again, Aaron Rodgers owns you, and he came to town for an ownership meeting and showed you what it was all about. As the Packers go to 1-1, tough matchup next week. But if they can beat the Bucks, maybe this is a team that gets rolling.
Yeah, that was just brutal for the Bears. Seriously, just.
Speaking of brutal,
as brutal as that was, just wait, it gets even more brutal.
The Bills-Titans game was over.
Oh, good God.
It was 7-7 at one point in the second quarter.
And
then a final score, but before the end of the third, I believe. But the final score ended up being 41-7. Stephon Diggs, 3 touchdown.
My condolences if you had to go up against Stephon Diggs in any of your leagues and you were just like, okay, I'm ahead by 40 points. How am I doing that? Never mind. I got my ass kicked.
Yeah, if you had the Allen's Diggs stack, you got a cool 70 points from those 2 guys on Monday night. That's just a nasty, nasty amount of points to be getting. The Bills look like every bit of the Super Bowl favorite that is advertised, given the Bills beat the Titans, who lost to the Giants in week 1, who are 0-2. Didn't look good either week. If you have Derrick Henry, do not panic. Easier matchups are coming. Yeah. Keep that in mind.
The Bills is Sports Shuffle Audible. Is Vrabel C going to be getting a little? No, he's safe.
No, he's done too good for too long. I think the quality of the coach is there. They understand they've got some problems. They don't have a lot of weapons on the outside. Their defense, it is the Bills. I think we're going to look back later in the season and be like, yeah, that makes sense. The Titans and everybody else is getting clowned by the Bills. They're still not bad teams. The Bills are just really, really good. But we'll see. Again, Derrick Henry, easier matchups are coming. So if you have him in fantasy, don't panic. If you don't have him in fantasy and you want to go and maybe try and get him on the cheap, well, might not be the worst time to go try and do that. But the Bills look every bit the Super Bowl favorite. They are going to have probably, I think on paper, the toughest matchup they'll have early season at the minimum, with the Dolphins coming, or them coming to Miami this weekend to place the 2-0 Dolphins. And it's going to be, I think that should be a bigger game than it is. It should be a Monday night football or a Sunday night football game between the Dolphins and Bills early, but we'll see. I don't think they can flex it, but yeah. Bills good, Titans bad if you want fantasy analysis in this one.
Right.
But yes, no Gabe Davis, no problem. All right, then we go to the last game, and this is the game that was also pretty much over at halftime, 24-7 at halftime, remained the final score throughout the second half. And I just remember sitting there going, Thielen, you need 5 points. Thielen, point per reception, you need 5 points.
I have a feeling.
You got it.
I have a feeling Dalvin Cook owners were experiencing something similar.
Yeah, I've made a few offers for Dalvin Cook. Dalvin Cook, another one, buy low if you have the opportunity. Austin Eckler, you can buy low on the opportunity as well. But yeah, I have Josh Allen and Adam Thielen going. I did win this by 5 points. I needed a combined 35. Allen got me 30. I needed Thielen to get me 5 points, with 7 minutes left in the game, he is on 0. So I'm just rooting for Cleveland. He did get, I think, 4 catches for about 40 yards or so and get the points I needed to get the win. But that just goes to show you, if you have a fantasy rooting interest, you will watch garbage games because, oh boy, there are people, again, rooting for the Bills. Don't take Allen and Diggs out. I need points. They benched him after the third quarter. There were people here going, don't bench, don't, go to the. It just seemed like they wanted to force feed Justin Jefferson, and that doesn't work because everybody knows your plan. Once it started going to Thielen, the ball started actually moving a little bit better. So keep that in mind. Just because Justin Jefferson is really, really good doesn't mean he's got to be your only part of the offense. Eagles defense, though, really, really good as well. Darius Slay a couple picks on Kirk Cousins, and Kirk Cousins did his Monday night usual.
Yeah, because you just sort of have to wonder about the question of, Kirk Cousins and prime time. Yeah, that the Jaguars are the Colts' kryptonite. Apparently, prime time is Kirk Cousins' kryptonite.
Yeah, he's real bad in the prime time, but I mean he's just it's Kirk Cousins. You kind of expect that from
All
him
of a
nowadays.
sudden, you had week one where the Vikings horns were going wild, and I think they got stomped on for week 2.
Yeah, not a deal. Anywho, that's the recap from last week. Let's look ahead quickly to the Thursday nighter in week number 3. It is Pittsburgh. It is Cleveland. It is the long-awaited first matchup between Mitch Trubisky and Jacoby Brissett. I think it's the first one. God, I hope it's the first and possibly only one, but we will see. This tracks to be a pretty low-scoring game. I think the high-scoring game between these two last years was a total of 40 or so. They did have a 25-15-10 game in there as well. So I don't expect this to be a barn burner like we saw Kansas City and Los Angeles Chargers last week. This is going to be lower scoring. 2 good defenses. Still no TJ Watt for the Pittsburgh Steelers. I think Deontay Johnson and Najee Harris are at least in consideration, but they're tough plays. Neither one of them has been great through 2 weeks. Outside of that, Pat Freiermuth for the Pittsburgh Steelers. For Cleveland, Kareem Hunt and Nick Chubb. That's pretty much your entire offense. Amari Cooper did pretty well last week, but I think that was against lesser competition. You expect better things from Pittsburgh on the defensive side of the ball. I expect this to be an extremely low-scoring game. I don't know which team is favored here, but I would take whichever team is getting the points because I think it's going to be very, very close and very, very low-scoring. Question is, Joel, who has a 5-game pick'em lead so far through 2 weeks, who gets this win?
Yes, this is one of those games that you tend to want to lean towards Pittsburgh, but I'm actually going to go the other way because of the Pittsburgh injury concerns, and most notably, you tend to look at if it's a low scoring game, if it's going to be a ground and pound. Out of both of these 2 units, who has the better ground attack?
Yeah.
Easily. It has to be
Close.
Chubb and Hunt and Cleveland all the way. That, granted, I know you're saying, well, you have the question of Brissett versus Trubisky at quarterback. When you have that secure a ground game that can ground and pound all night long, that's what they're going to be doing. It's going to be a very ugly game. It's not going to be pretty at all to watch. But I think when all is said and done with it, Cleveland is going to emerge very sloppily with the victory.
Yeah, this Pittsburgh offensive line, I think, is going to be the big difference. That's because they're bad. I think Myles Garrett has a field day. I don't think Najee Harris gets going. Mitch Trubisky, again, I don't think it matters if it's him or Pickett or Mason Rudolph or anybody else you want to name and put back there. Ben Roethlisberger wouldn't be any better. They just don't have time to get the things going. They have to do that quick out passing to Deontay Johnson type of thing like Roethlisberger's doing just because that offensive line is so bad. I think Cleveland, the offensive line's a lot better. They'll get the ground game going. They'll maintain possession of this game. And I think they win it probably like a 20 to 17, 20-13 if we're lucky. And that's going to include at least one defensive score. All right, so I would love to go Pittsburgh and try and make up a game on you, but this is just I don't see it happening. All right. I got to get warmed up for my final thought again because when I told Joel it was a little more fresh. I now had a whole podcast to to digest. It's been reversed, and we'll get to it here shortly. But Joel, time for final thoughts.
My final thought is humanity is in trouble. Are you ready?
Oh, it's been in trouble. What's going on?
Are you ready for this headline? Don't cook chicken in NyQuil.
This was almost my final thought if this didn't happen today.
Dangerous social
glad you brought
media
this one up.
challenge spurs warning. The U.S. Food and Drug Administration released an official warning about cooking chicken in NyQuil in response to yet another dangerous TikTok trending targeting children and teens. The social media there encourages minors susceptible to peer pressure to make what has been called, quote, sleepy chicken, unquote, a meal likely as dangerous as it is disgusting. Yes, we are living in an age where people have to be warned not cooking chicken with NyQuil. Good God. This is an actual headline. And that's my final thought.
Yeah, that was definitely on my radar for final thought until
That's just a story. You're going like, okay, let's see. Okay, they're remaking Quantum Leap again because Hollywood has run out of ideas. Okay, yada. What else is going on? And NyQuil and chicken and cooking out. What?
yeah. So, all right, we're gonna go back to sports for mine, and it's not gonna be something sad and depressing. It's actually pretty funny to me, but I said a little bit ago, target those players who've maybe had a rough start or a bad game so far to start the season. I said Derrick Henry, I said Austin Eckler, Dalvin Cook, even a couple others possibly in there. One of them that after last week, maybe you have a chance of going after would be a Jonathan Taylor. He looked really bad against Jacksonville. So I think, hey, you know what? It's Dynasty League. My team's 2-0. Let's go see if I can go get one of the best players in football. So I packaged together a trade offer of Allen Robinson, Chase Edmonds, Ramondre Stevenson, George Pickens, the rookie for Pittsburgh, a 3rd-round pick and a 5th-round pick in the Dynasty League for just Jonathan Taylor. Joel, I know I asked you beforehand, but once again, which of those two would you rather have? The entire package I sent or Jonathan Taylor?
Jonathan Taylor.
Now, is that a horrifically unfair deal in a Dynasty League to the last place team, by the way? Is it the worst deal ever? No. Is it something I would have personally taken? Probably not, but you're getting, 2 viable starting pieces, 2 young guys with a lot of upside, and a couple picks. So that correctly gets rejected. And then it gets weird because it gets rejected, and then I get an offer from the same guy. And I asked Joel to guess the player that is being offered back to receive these 3 players or 3 assets. Jonathan Taylor and a 1st-round pick in 23 and a 1st-round pick in 24 for a single player. Now the quarterback settings in this league are stupid. You get 6 points per passing touchdown, a point per completion. So quarterbacks do score a lot of points, and you must be thinking, okay, quarterback, it's got to be Josh Allen. It's got to be Pat Mahomes. No. Set your targets a little bit lower. Oh, maybe Kyler Murray? I don't know. He's got some upside, right? I don't know. Keep going down that list. It's got to be someone, I don't know. Maybe it's someone really looking towards the future and they went and got like Malik Willis or something really dumb. You're like, nah, maybe no. Matthew Stafford. And I'm receiving this offer to get Jonathan Taylor and 2 firsts for Matthew Stafford. I'm going, I can't turn that down. I just can't. I can't actually. I'm a smartass because I go, if he's going to give up that much, I can probably also get a 2nd-round pick out of him. So I counter with a 2nd-round pick, immediately accepted. And then almost as fast, the league goes, no, that's got to be vetoed. That's got to be vetoed. And I'm sitting there talking to the people in the league that I know personally going, yeah, I don't know why he offered that to me. Here's what I offered originally. What are you doing? So, yeah, it got vetoed. It's been overturned. It actually happened during the show, all the parts going backwards. So, keep that in mind as you go out for trades. You have to do the right thing, but you have to throw some crap against the wall because you never know what's going to stick. I don't like that it was vetoed. but I fully understand it. And if it was someone else in the league, I think I'd have been like, yeah, that's got to be vetoed. So, yeah. Just remember, if someone offers you a god awful trade, it's probably going to get vetoed, but you can't turn it down on that. You have to take the chance. So, yeah.
Is that when you have to be like frozen and let it go?
Yeah, it's like, well, and again, everybody I've talked to is like, I don't blame you. I don't understand. I'm like, I don't understand it either. Why would you offer that? And like I said, I know the quarterback settings are stupid, but I don't know. I don't know what you're doing there.
The trade never bothered me anyway.
But yeah, I'm 2-0, but I have the third fewest points, and that was a trade offer with the last place team. So, I mean, I don't know. Maybe the guy's just bad at fantasy football. I can't tell you. But when I go from here's a bunch of spare parts for a great player, and it's turned down, be like, no, here's what I want. I want a middle of the road quarterback, and you'll get the best running back in the league and 2 first-round picks. Like, Joel, would you have taken the deal? If someone offered you Jonathan Taylor and 2 firsts for Matthew Stafford?
Probably.
I mean, how do you say no to that? So, anyways, that's been my day. Also, another personal best in disc golf, 4 under at Maxwell Park. So that keeps going the right direction as well. But yeah, so yeah, offer terrible trades and see what happens, because sometimes they will do something even dumber. Weird final thought for me. All right, so that's our time. We'll be back Friday.
Don't do your chicken with NyQuil.
Don't do chicken with NyQuil. Try and avoid getting stung in the ear by a wasp, because that makes your head swell over here and it's really uncomfortable. That's the nightmare I'm living in. But yeah, it's fine. And then yeah, offer terrible trades just to see what happens, because you never know. I know I was trying to shop Jonathan Taylor in another league in the offseason. I was expecting like a Javonte Williams and 3 first-round picks back. So that just goes to show the mentality of that trade.
My mama told me you better shop around.
Yeah, pretty much. So, anyways, that's our time. I'm flying right around Gokers along with
Tampa Motormouth, Joel Verla.
Then we'll be back Friday with more probably not great picks by me. And we'll recap the Thursday night football game that is going to be a barn burner between Jacoby Brissett and Mitch Trubisky.
Yeah, hopefully it'll be more entertaining than picking your nose. But
I mean, probably not by a lot. And just remember, NyQuil and chicken separately, not together.
Yeah, that's why they always said that they give you the plastic cup, because after you take the NyQuil, it's like giving yourself a liquid hammer.
Yeah. So don't do that. It's not hard. Where do they? I could go into the youth of today and just I don't understand where this comes from. At first, they're eating laundry detergent, like when they were eating Tide Pods. And no, we're supposed to be done. But when they were eating Tide Pods, I was like, that's really dumb. But I also can understand where you look at it and go, oh, it looks like candy. If you're like a 10-year-old kid or younger, I get at least be like, all right, you're stupid. But if you're like young enough, I get where they can get confused. You're a teenager, you're just an idiot, and I mean, you're Olympic level dumb at that age anyway. So, but now it's cooking chicken, and that doesn't even. I have so many problems with this. It irks me. Again, this was, if it wouldn't have been for this horrific trade thing that just happened, literally right before we came on, I probably would have been like, you stole my final thought, because it was honestly, I'm like, chicken and frickin' NyQuil. Just drink the NyQuil. I don't want to go into it. But apparently if you cook it, it's supposed to like absorb more of the chemicals that get you messed up. And it's not what happens. It releases them into the air, and it can mess you up by the scent more than anything. And then it tastes like NyQuil flavored chicken. Are you kidding me? I think I just scared a cat into dropping something in the other room by yelling that. So I'm going to go make sure I don't have an injury to a cat. And I'm going to go back and see if I can trade Matthew Stafford for something more reasonable. And with that, we gone.